Welcome back, and welcome back, Alana.
Thank you.
More of your expertise coming, I hope, and assume.
Yeah.
Let's find out. So today we want to talk about I think we both agree, one of the most overlooked and maybe even misunderstood parts of the interview process. And that's what to ask your interviewer. I mean, I have horrible memories in my very early career of sitting there when they said, okay, any questions for us? And I would say something like, a bank holiday's included in the holiday allowance. It's just, I want to make my palms sweat thinking about it, right? But I think a reason for that wasn't necessarily just because I was at the beginning of my career. I think interviews were very different then. I think we're talking in the mid-50s, not just 50s, a long time ago. But interviews then felt like you were getting grilled and you were on the spot and you had, so when it came to any questions for us, mentally exhausted. Whereas these days, I'd be interested to get your take on it. It feels like much more of a two-way conversation these days. Actually having a legitimate question and conversation the other way with your interviewer, super important. So, is that telling with your kind of experience?
I think something that I probably speak to every candidate about or tell every candidate is an interview is a two-way street. It's as much for them to assess if you're the right fit. It's as much for you to assess if they are the right business for you, if whoever you're sitting in front of are the right leaders to get the best out of you, and the business can support you in your career aspirations. So I think making sure you're armed with some questions that are going to cover off, helping you make that decision. Because I do think that in a lot of interview processes, because you are being asked questions to provide examples or whatever that kind of may be, you're often on the back foot. You're not always thinking about, is this the right fit for me? So those questions is your chance to really, I suppose, get an understanding. You want to leave that interview knowing that if they offered you the job tomorrow, do you have enough information to make your decision?
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I'm not even sure how I would answer this. Sorry in advance. But let's just off the back of what you're saying in terms of being either feeling the pressure or maybe not bringing your A game, or you're getting strange chemistry off the interviewers. And when it comes, so you're not sure how it's going, basically. You're not sure if it's the right fit. You're not sure how well you're doing in a hypothetical scenario. What would be the types of questions that you would then ask? So let's take two examples. One, I feel like I'm having a horrible interview. I feel like I'm struggling. I can't read their body language. Then it's my turn. And the inevitable bit comes when they say, okay, any questions for us? Where do you go? Where do you go as a candidate in that scenario?
I think it depends probably what kind of outcome you're hoping for. If you are there, sitting there and thinking, I've not performed to my best ability here. I've got more in the tank. They've not seen the best of me. I've been really nervous. I've not answered the questions that well. I think actually you asking questions is a really good opportunity for you to pull a little bit of credibility back. For you to demonstrate the research that you've done by the questions that you're about to ask them. I also think as well, in an interview scenario, we're all human beings, all have bad days. We all have really stressful mornings at time getting to work, right? So as much as you might be sitting there thinking this isn't really going well, someone, on the other side of the table could have had a really awful morning and actually you've not had the best of them. So for me, I suppose, first things or top tips I will say to people, what makes people comfortable is usually talking about themselves or what they know. I always think a really good question to ask people is, what attracted you to the business?
What's kept you there?
I see, from checking on LinkedIn or from the company website, you've been here for X amount of years in this capacity. You've been promoted into this role. What first attracted you to your business? And like when you were me, sitting here, and also what's kept you with the business, right? Because you're then going to see probably a bit of a softer version of the person sitting in front of you because they're going to talk about themselves, basically. I think that's always a good way to take a little pressure off.
It's such a good point. And I feel like with a question like that, you don't have to be a psychologist to know if someone's giving you an authentic answer or not.
Absolutely.
So if you're saying to someone, hey, look, you looked around and you've been here 10 years, that's amazing. What attracted, what's keeping you here? Like, why is this the place that I'm going to spend the next 10 years? If someone is thinking, I actually hate the place, but the money's good, you're going to pick that up pretty quickly, right? Whereas if they genuinely think, honestly, it's the people. We have an amazing hiring process. Company culture is second to none. I love coming to work and working. Again, you'll pick that up. So it's such a good question in terms of that two-way conversation that you mentioned earlier, because you will know if someone is being authentic or not, I think.
And I think that then it gives an opportunity to lead in into a really nice set where if it hasn't went that well, and again, you can kind of show what you've done in the kind of prep work, right, in terms of your research, what you know about the business, and just resets the kind of playing field a little bit by asking something like that.
So that's a good intro question if you just feel like you need to take the pressure off ever so slightly, a bit of a breather. What about if we were to get a bit more specific? Let's say that you actively were unsure about the interviewers, for example. What would you do to try and unpack whether that was just your perception because you're nervous, or actually if this is or isn't the place you want to be, to try and bring them to life a little bit more and try and understand why you've got reservations?
I think something that's really hard to drill down on is culture. And every business probably that you would go and speak to, I'd like to think that everyone that worked for a business probably thinks they've got a positive culture. I think culture questions, I always encourage people to drill down on, because you think is a good culture, or why you think the team has a great culture, could actually be quite off-putting for me. So I think that a good question is to talk about what that does mean for them.
Yeah, like, summarize in 3 pillars or keywords or whatever.
We mentioned at part of the interview to demonstrate X value in line with your company values. Why is that important to the company? Can you talk to me a little bit more about that, why that is a value, and how do the team demonstrate that? How do you ensure from your side that your team are demonstrating that? Because again, it kind of means it can't give you a kind of waffling answer, because again, it's a two-way street. It's not just for an interviewer to drill you on your experience. It is an opportunity for you to find out, do I want to invest, or is this the right landing spot for me? So I think actually trying to pick apart what culture means to them as a business, how are they making sure that's ingrained in the team, and how can I feed in to that positive culture?
Feed in and also benefit from it. And again, if it's an authentic answer, they should be able to get specific pretty quickly to your point. And it is so true. I always think that, okay, employment is a two-way street. At the end of every month, some numbers will appear in our bank account. Fantastic. But we're giving our colleagues and employers our time, and that we're never getting that back. It's a really big commitment to say to someone, I'm going to spend 9-10 hours a day, or 5 or 2, however long, giving you the best of what I've got, week after week, year after year. You don't get a rerun of that. So actually being brave and saying, hey, is this a cool place and a cool opportunity? Okay, so we're agreed. And if we were to, let's reframe, and we're not being negative nannies for a second, let's say the conversation's gone amazingly well and you're even more pumped about the opportunity than even before. You've met these people and you're getting goosebumps thinking, oh my goodness, I can see I'm with them on the Christmas night out, or whatever it is. I want to be part of this team. It's gone really well and you've had a great discussion. And they say, any questions for us? And you think, no, I'm good. I'm good to go. Which I know for a lot of hiring managers is, I'm sorry to say, a cardinal sin. What do you do then? You feel like you've had a great discussion. You love them.
Always ask questions, right? Like there is never a time where, nope, I think I'm good. I think I've covered everything. I always say to people, I usually have, for me, a really good number is somewhere between 6 to 8 questions for someone going into an interview, because you will probably find at least 2 or 3 of them, sometimes even 3 or 4, will be covered off during your conversation. So you don't want to leave yourself short. For me, for a really salesperson, I think it's a really, to manage expectations. So you've had a really great conversation. You think the interviews went really well. What is next steps from here? What was next steps for you? How do you think my suitability, met each other a couple of times or have had 3 interviews? What do you still need from me at this stage to be able to make up a decision? Call it you're not trying to do an assumptive close, but you're ultimately trying to get some feedback and understand kind of where you stand. So I think always ask, even if you think it's went really well, ask timescales, what are their next steps, because it's good for you to understand what that then looks like for you, because quite often as recruiters, yes, we hope within 24 hours you've got a decision, but sometimes it can be like 3-4 weeks, has to go to the US or other things happen, so you want to understand that because you might have other interviews and you don't want to be hedging your bets and holding on a decision in the next 24 hours from a business that you're not going to get it from for 3 weeks. So understand the timescales there. But also, if you're confident enough to ask, do you think, how have you assessed my suitability for this role? Can you see me fitting in this business? A leading question to try and gauge something.
Quite a big leap, that, from a confidence standpoint. It's like, it is.
I've yet to meet a hiring manager that said to me, I really didn't like that question. They might not answer it. They might say, we wouldn't be able to disclose that at this
Yeah.
stage, but I appreciate the question. They can respectfully decline to answer, but I think more often than not, you probably will get some kind of authentic
Something.
or honest.
There's a really good point, and I guess a kind of version of that question maybe could be around, look, was there anything we discussed where you feel I didn't cover everything properly?
Sure.
Was there anything that raised alarm bells that maybe it shouldn't have from my standpoint?
Absolutely.
Because this looks like a great opportunity to me.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point. What about a quick fire? Because I know we need to wrap this up, but what about a quick fire do's and don'ts? And even if it feels like for someone like you, I don't want to say stating the obvious, but we've got many years in recruitment scenarios and interview prep and all that kind of stuff. It's second nature.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, especially if they've had big stints in certain portions of their career, might have done an interview for 10 years. Yeah. And what are those kind of real do's and don'ts? How personal can you get or not? How much LinkedIn research do you do before looking like a stalker? What's the balance?
I think knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
Recruiters might tell you different things. For me, knowledge is power and knowledge is key. I think that I would like a hiring manager to know that I've researched them and probably some colleagues, some people in the team. In previous interviews, I've asked to speak to other members of the team to gauge how they find culture, how do they like working in the business, how did they find onboarding. I think you can't be too researched. So I think very much as a bare minimum, you should always have, if not LinkedIn with the hiring manager, you've definitely been on their profile around 24 hours before. I think you always, I know it sounds ridiculous, but shake hands.
Yeah.
People.
Eye contact.
Strong eye contact. Oh my goodness, the amount of times I have been interviewing people and here, there, never, I can't look you in the eye. Strong eye contact. Often a handshake.
Yeah.
Make sure you've done your research, and the questions for me are really key.
Yeah.
Just even things. I've got so many horror stories, which I'm sure we could do another series about. If it's in a really awkward location, do a drive-by before. Make sure you know where you're going.
Where do I park?
That's what I think. Make sure you have done your prep, but don't underestimate the really small first impressions. If you're a smoker, do not smoke before your interview.
Yeah.
Things like that. First impressions count, and I think it's the stat on first impressions is something like 10 seconds.
If that, yeah.
I think it's less if it's woman to woman, because we do this quicker.
More instinctive, possibly, yes.
But yeah, you don't get a lot of time, so make sure you do the basics really well.
I agree, and the eye contact point in particular is really important because some people do feel genuinely uncomfortable with eye contact and struggle with it, especially for long periods of time. So I think that balance it's not a case of having to stare someone out. It's not a staring competition.
Yeah.
But I interviewed somebody once, and for the whole interview, the whole hour, they were looking at my hair. And they didn't look me in the eye. Well, it wasn't for a compliment, but thank you. But they wouldn't look me in the eye. Yeah. And I understand that people can maybe a bit nervous, but you really have to get out of your comfort zone because as an interviewer, it's quite unsettling.
It is.
So you might have eye contact, but it's actually worse for them when you don't because it feels very unnatural. So that, like you say, it might sound obvious, but it isn't.
Always take them up on a glass of water as well.
Yeah.
Tea or coffee, not for me, but I always take a glass of water.
Like I just expressed there by nearly choking while I was
That,
talking.
but also if they ask a question that you kind of need a couple of seconds, it's a really good opportunity to take a drink. You bought yourself a couple of seconds and you set it back down and then you go. Always go for and usually they have a glass of water as well. It's a bit awkward when you don't have one.
Yeah, that's very true.
Take that closer.
Okay, good. And that's the big takeaway.
There we go. You take away anything from this is have the water, hydrate.
Have the water. Bring your own glass of water, just in case. Thank you so much, Alana. As always, super insightful. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.